Good morning, everyone. Let's go through a little bit of how characters are created and how storylines get created. Let's get into it. So you've all seen already where I'm ended up, the pitch that I'm making for the strip, and I'll get back to that at the end. But let me start from the beginning. That's always a good place to start. So back in college, I'm going back that far, I was doing strips, and at the time, the pitch was, for me, these are well, I'm always going to say that the characters you create should probably have some bearing on people that you know or some experiences that you have. It makes it just easier to tell stories. So back in the day, I'm in college, and these are college roommates who are, putting up with the idea of roommate stuff and crazy pets that go with. That's where I started. That was Worm and Low. I see a lot when I look back at these things. The tricks that I use today are present in these early strips. The idea of the pregnant pause and the visual gag. But that was long ago, back when I was in college. And I did probably about maybe 2 months worth of those things. Then went away to the Navy. Started building characters while I was, between ports. This guy here, Gomperilla. Now, this was not made for a strip, and a lot of the things I kind of went back and forth between, am I going to do comic books? Am I going to do cartoon strip? And I've done both on occasion. Gomperilla was a mall security guard who was also a sentient gorilla. In my head, completely made sense. Mall security, why couldn't it be a gorilla? And that character went around for a little while, never made it into either a comic or a strip. And as I'm going through, and I have stacks of notebooks. I have them, gosh, they go back maybe almost 15, 20 years in my notebooks. So I started doing some character designs for video games. Fighting games, got to have the old guy, right? He probably will carry around jugs of whiskey while he fights. And then the fighting trope lasted for a little while. I did characters like this guy, your classic video game fighting character. And then as I'm looking through, I realized I did this guy. I don't even know why, but man, I love that drawing. And he never made it into a strip either. I probably had a story for going back in time. He was a sentient ape. I don't know, something about apes and being smart that I kind of liked. I don't even know if I gave him a name. But again, all these kind of things are I was making reference to my military background, and it seemed there was a story in there worth telling. So let me get these out of the way here. I did go back to, I've been collecting comic books since I was a little in high school. And I always wanted to tell a story of what would happen if Superman landed on a farm where the parents were not particularly conscientious and they maybe latchkey kind of. And then it was Norm. Norm was a Superman who didn't get Jonathan and Martha Kent as parents. So I did that as a comic, and I got through most of the first issue, and then kind of faded away, as these things tend to do for me. But you can see again, you'll see the eyebrows that I do now started probably back here with Norm. For a while, I was doing a comic book called The Dawn of the Furries, and that was I kickstarted that actually. This is, of course, furries. If you're familiar with the phenomenon, right? The guys dressed up in costume. I figured if they were rabid and dangerous and they attacked the city, kind of like a zombie type story, but more furry friendly, I suppose. Stuffing coming out of the mouth, the eyes are missing, the claws are actual claws, maybe a zipper is exposed. That was kind of the various pieces I would do with these guys. I started scoping out like exactly what every furry should have. They should have missing eyes, foam coming out, and a zipper exposed. That would signify that was a rabid furry. So that comic book again didn't go super far, 2 issues. And then jumping from there, a little bit older, back to the strips, and I had a friend turning 50. I had drawn us as a couple of cartoon characters way back in the day, and I said, well, he's turning 50 now, I'm going to resurrect him. So I had the younger character, as I originally drew him, visited by his future self. Note the future wristbands. He comes through a portal and talks to himself at his 50th birthday. the 70-year-old comes and talks to the 30-year-old about when he turns 50. That was a strip. It was pretty funny. And again, it was kind of a one-off gag though, just for his birthday party. It wasn't ever going to really be a strip. So to more modern times, I was going back and forth between strip and comic book. What am I going to do? And then I decided, why don't I try to do both? So this series, this cast of characters here, and now is when you start to see the octopus work that I did. Actually, I skipped right over the beavers, didn't I? So for a year, I was doing a strip called The Daily Beaver. I was publishing it online, and basically I would just do a beaver, Abraham Lincoln beaver, the hippie type beaver, the motorcycle gang beaver. I just did a different beaver drawing per day and kind of gave them some setting. Not even sure why there's a big glow up there. Anyways, that lasted for a year, but ultimately I got kind of bored with it, just drawing the same character over and over again. So, okay. This was called Octopus FWB, Octopus Friends with Benefit. It's a racy book, or it's a racy story. Between the scenes, you don't know what's going on between all these folks. But Acorn and Freddie are best friends, have been best friends forever. The guy, Sly, who lives in the back, through her backyard, her backyard neighbor, she's always had a crush on him. They're about starting to get to the dating age. They start dating. There's a love triangle going on between the three of them. Or not really love, because Freddie is more of a very strong friend, we'll call it that way. Earl is Sly's best friend. I think I called her Steph, but Acorn's best friend. Anyways, the whole group, where I started going with this was, now we got a group dynamic. It's a lot easier to work with when you have a whole group, because you can have these three have their relationships, the two of them have a relationship, these two, how do they relate to each other? How do these two relate to each other? How do these two relate to each other? So all those different relationships is where I started building. There was a great series of stories you can pull from all those things. So I didn't know, do I do it as a book? Do I do it as a strip? I ended up doing both. At the same time as I was doing a strip, you see here, I also started doing the comic. And so the comic story, something like that, kind of told a deeper story, and then I was using the strips as promotional pieces to perhaps drum up some excitement through things like Tumblr and DeviantArt. Again, after about a year and a half, got to where I could see this was not going to hold my attention again, so backed away from it. But anyways, the things I learned from that is having a group dynamic, I think, makes it a lot easier to tell stories and to find places for jokes. So the opportunity came up to submit again, and I started thinking, like, if I'm going to submit this year, what should I be working on? What should I be building towards? And you've seen some of these pictures in the earlier videos, the sketches I was doing that kind of said, okay, well, here's a cast of characters. I actually went back and said, what if I did the beavers as like a family of beavers, and there's the mother-in-law moves in with the family of beavers, and you got the surly teenager beaver and the two rambunctious kids, the mom beaver and the dad beaver. That, I felt like that was going to hit a wall pretty quick, so I said, no, catapulting off of there. And then these images, kind of almost the same thing. I actually started here before I turned them on with the beavers, and again, I felt like it was going to hit a wall pretty quick. I know that I can get a lot of humor out of conflict, out of having characters kind of opposed to each other, so I started going with, well, what if I throw a Viking, like through time, almost Samurai Jack-like, and the first character that he would meet, the first person he meets when he gets here, is a little girl with a lemonade stand. And there could be a lot of tension between the old ways and the new ways, the male-female tension. I toyed around with that idea for quite a while, and even did up this concept here. But then again, I also felt like if I started building a cast from there, the joke was kind of a one-note joke. That he's old, she's young, and there's conflict. So I didn't think it was going to hold my attention. I went back to the idea that, boy, I still do like superheroes a lot. And sketch just went out really quick. And that's where I got hooked into what I'm now calling absolute value. So the idea of father and superhero son, this is really all I did was I drew this with a towel around his neck. And thinking, all right, well, he's suitcase indicating that he has a job, towel and flying off the ground indicating he's got superhero powers. What would that look like? What kind of things can happen there? Well, Superman oftentimes misunderstood for his powers. If you go back to the book Superman for All Seasons, when Jonathan, Superman's father, talks to his wife Martha about boy, Clark's getting older and he's exhibiting all these great powers. If we didn't raise him right, there's going to be some real damage put to the world because we didn't raise our kid right. But that was a great story. So I wanted to kind of shine a little bit in towards that when I started doing these characters in this strip. So got father and son superhero, and I said, well, you know what, I'm gonna redraw that so I can see what that looks like when he's not in his pajamas. And then that's when I decided I know I needed a logo for the shirt. I had a character way back in the day called Absolute Value. Absolute value being that mathematical symbol for there's no negative, it's only positive. And I felt like, you know what, father, son. I know a father looks at his son and says, there's only positive here. Even in the down times, there's only ever positive. So absolute value seemed to fit. They gave me absolute value symbol on his shirt. But it couldn't be a whole cartoon strip just for these two. I knew I needed more. And again, looking for the foils. If he's a Superman trope, he's going to be, optimistic, positive. I knew I needed to have some level of negativity. And that's when I just drew up Walken here. He was, I think I went back and forth drawing the two of them at the same time. Walken, kind of dark, Batman-esque maybe, Lex Luthor-esque, we won't know for sure, but he'll be the pessimist of the story. And then Liz with Ocho, I knew I had to throw an octopus in it because I just enjoy drawing octopus. And it helps to have that level of, for a strip anyways, they want some level of marketability, things you can put on coffee mugs, having that sensibility. While I was designing the characters certainly played into it. I'm not, there's no reason to not want that. So that's where Ocho fits into the picture. And then Liz representing a bit of maturity and then a bit of the female end of things, because there's still that conflict, male-female conflict will come into play, I'm sure, in a lighthearted way. So that was the main cast of characters. Now, as I thought about the story, I know that I'm going to want to add more aspects to it. I'm surely add more characters as I'm plotting out the next series of 5. And I plot out by week, so I know that this week's going to be, the first week was them moving in, the second week is his first day of school. Actually, maybe the next 2 weeks will be the first day of school. First at the bus stop for 1 week, then going to classes the second week. So that's how I came to what we now see as this characters here. There'll be interplay between these two, between these two. I know that there's going to be relationships to be formed and conflicts, or conflicts may be too strong a word, but some level of tension between each of them in all their different angles. And that's going to help to drive all the stories. Comedy, in many parts, can be brought out by just having very opposing points of view, right? And so I'm looking for many ways, characters who can have opposing points of view and then reflect on them with some humor. There's also, of course, physical gags and those types of things, but that's basically how I design characters. That's the background of some characters that I've done in the past. The stack of sketchbooks is deep. I couldn't go through the whole thing and make this any kind of a short video, but thought I'd go through all of those and show you folks how I designed this cast of characters and what sensibilities I had in my head as I planned the whole thing out. Hope that was helpful for you if you start deciding that you want to create a strip of your own. My advice: find some place to have some conflict, have a good variety of characters with different points of worldviews, and then use those in your joke telling. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to me. Please subscribe to the channel if you find this information useful. I'll be posting videos like this. I get up at 3 a.m. to do this kind of work, so I should be making more videos on a regular basis, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you all. If you're awake at 3 a.m., there'll be at some point some live videos, some live streaming, and then we'll just sit and talk while we draw. Thanks everybody for your attention. Have a great day.